Everywhere you wander in the Serengeti, there are wonders to be found. A pride of lions feeding on a freshly killed wildebeest. A mother cheetah watching over her 4 cubs. Young bow elephants testing their strength. An elusive leopard climbing down from a tree. A nervous lion cub learning to balance on a limb. But the most wondrous sight of all is the Great Migration, hundreds of thousands of wildebeest and zebras following the rains to find green grass on an endless march of survival. We are in Tanzania on a tour with Overseas Adventure Travel in November, just in time for the start of the migration through Serengeti National Park. Over the next few months, more than 1 million wildebeest and 250,000 zebras will pass through the Serengeti, a word that means endless plain in the native Maasai language. The migration brings a welcome feast to predators, especially the lions. Even this old man of the plains somehow managed to kill a wildebeest, food that will help him survive a little longer. When he dies, there will be many more lions to take his place on the food chain. In 4 days, we saw more than 40 lions in Serengeti National Park. They are so accustomed to the Land Rovers we ride in, the lions barely notice as we watch and take pictures just 20 feet away. We are close enough that we can easily see the battle scars of these 2 big males as they lounge in the shade of a rock outcropping. Much like house cats, lions spend most of their times lounging and sleeping. These males finally stir when they catch the scent of urine from a female on the rock above them. Unlike lions, elephants spend most of their time eating, up to 18 hours a day. They need a huge amount of food to sustain their massive bodies.
These guys need about 300 kilograms of gases a day and about 200 liters of water.
Their trunks are well designed for their eating habits.
They are using the trunk like a hand.
Yeah.
And the African elephants have got 2 fingers at the end of the trunk.
The elephants are so large they could be in danger of overheating under the hot sun so close to the equator. That's why they are constantly fanning their ears, the elephant's built-in cooling system.
One time it cools the blood for 9 degrees cooler.
Yeah.
One time alone. Because they have a huge blood circulation.
Another good way to keep cool, rolling around in the mud.
The trunk itself is very heavy. Seems little, but it got about 80,000 different muscles in there. So it can. Oh, look at that picture.
Did you get this one?
Like the lions, the elephants don't seem to mind our presence. Several times they cross the road right in front of us, so close you can actually smell their earthy odor.
Practically touch them.
Very big one.
The elephants are fascinating to watch.
Keep moving.
No.
I'm telling you.
Oh, fine.
This is good.
They are extremely sociable animals who live in family groups controlled by a matriarch. But even the closest families have their feuds.
The other one has won this fight, and he's trying to, dominate the other one.
Ah.
Oh, look at this.
Is he?
What a show.
So he is just getting in a submissive position.
Yes, submissive position that you won. You won.
Giraffes, with their lanky legs and lengthy necks, are also very visible on the Serengeti. Their babies are able to stand and run within a few hours after they are born, an essential survival skill. Adults up to 20 feet tall are easily able to munch on vegetation that other critters can't reach. And with their tough tongues, they can even graze on thorny acacia trees. Hippos prefer to stay in the water during the heat of the day. So many of them, their pond becomes a stinky, stagnant pool of mucky water. But the hippos don't seem to mind the stench as long as the water is cool. They're not the only characters in the Serengeti with repulsive habits. Vultures gather by the score to get a share of a rotting wildebeest being picked over by marabou storks. These odd-looking creatures are nicknamed the Undertaker bird for the way they strut when they walk. Our guides, Ellie, Lucas, and Moses, were amazing in their ability to spot critters hidden in the bush. The Serengeti is huge, thousands of square miles, so we spent a lot of time driving down dusty roads or bouncing along rattle-trap trails, but the dust and discomfort were worth it. We saw almost every animal we could have hoped for on our 10-day tour through Tanzania. Baboons, sometimes in trees, sometimes on the ground grazing. Monkeys, always entertaining, often mischievous, ready to steal a meal any chance they get. Hyenas who hunt in packs and sometimes even steal a kill from the lions. Despite their fearsome reputation, even hyenas can be playful.
They're just playing with the youngsters. You see, the youngsters are much darker. So the communal den must be close by.
Cape buffalo, one of the strongest and most dangerous animals on the plains. Warthogs, not the cutest critters. They often have to kneel down to graze. Ostriches, the largest living species of bird. 20 chicks may hatch from a single nest, though only a couple of them will survive their first year. Impalas, gazelles, and many other antelope species, always alert for predators and ready to run. A leopard tortoise whose only protection is his rock-solid shell. The rare and elusive black rhinoceros. We found this pair in the Ngorongoro crater, actually a caldera, the collapsed cone of a volcano 2,500 feet deep and 12 miles across. It's a unique ecosystem, home to about 25,000 animals, which generally do not migrate. A freshwater pond is favored by hippos, which we were convinced were just rocks until we got a closer look. A salt lake inside the crater attracts thousands of flamingos. Everywhere we went in Tanzania, we saw birds, an amazing diversity of size, a kaleidoscope of color. One of the most fascinating were the weaver birds with their delicate hanging nests. Many mornings we woke up to the melodic call of birds, especially at the Lake Burungi camp, our home for several nights. At the camp one evening, a Maasai warrior took us for a nature walk through the bush, showing us some of the medicinal plants used by his tribe.
When you have fresh wounds, fresh cut, you have sunburn, all over you, you just apply this. It's like a lotion.
And he demonstrated how his people learned to make fire eons ago. Like many Maasai today, he wore sandals made from motorcycle tires, a modern adaptation of an ancient design. Our accommodations here at the Lake Burungi camp were in clean, comfy cottages powered by solar electricity. A lodge overlooking the lake served great food and cold drinks. All of the lodges we stayed at were clean and comfortable, but one place was exceptional. As a last-minute upgrade, we spent 2 nights at the Kaitela Lodge, a brand-new luxury resort with lavishly decorated rooms, distinctive thatched roofs, and a refreshing swimming pool. The lodge is surrounded by lush grounds, acres of gardens where they grow all of their fresh produce. In the Serengeti National Park, our accommodations were not as fancy, but certainly civilized considering we were many miles from the nearest town. Each couple had a private tent with, believe it or not, flush toilets and hot showers after the staff filled up a bucket behind the tent. And every morning warm water was delivered to our tents, a pleasant wake-up call. The camp cook made excellent meals on a simple stove run on propane. Each dinner, ample and delicious, was served with a smile. At one meal, we had a visitor, a stick insect that stuck around for breakfast. Every evening, we gathered around the campfire to share stories and a cold beer. We all have fond memories of our time at Kampi Yatwiga, the giraffe camp, where we went to sleep at night, listening to lions and leopards not far away. While the wildlife in the Serengeti was amazing, some of our most memorable experiences were meeting the people of Tanzania. In Arusha, the gateway to the Serengeti, the streets are lined with vendors selling everything and anything, food and furniture and fresh fish, no extra charge for the flies. Merchandise moves on whatever is available, bicycles, motorbikes, hand carts, and heads. Despite the crush of commerce, there are only 2 traffic lights in this city of 1 million people. Our trip leader, Ellie, took us on a walking tour, giving us a peek into a dirt-floored movie theater, a mud-walled cell phone store, a local watering hole, and a fabric store that did a good business with our group. Everyone we met was friendly, especially schoolgirls, eager to have their pictures taken. We stopped at an evangelical church that was packed for a day-long service. Tanzania has a melange of religions, Christian, Muslim, and traditional. At the Shanga Cultural Center, we met disabled people who were making a living creating crafts by hand. A converted bicycle served as their spinning wheel, producing yarn woven into colorful fabric. Some of the sewing machines were older than the women who used them, and many of the crafts were made from recycled materials, glass bottles, and aluminum cans. At an elementary school in the Ngorongoro highlands, we were warmly greeted by youngsters brimming with enthusiasm and grateful to have a chance to get an education, something most of their parents never had. Though education is now free in Tanzania, there are not enough qualified teachers, leaving this school with just 16 teachers for more than 600 students. This school, with the help of the Grand Circle Foundation, feeds the youngsters' bodies as well as their minds. They come early each morning to get a hot meal before the start of classes, porridge cooked over a crude wood stove. The poverty of these kids was evident from their tattered clothes. But despite the challenges they face in life, the kids were polite and friendly, happy to have visitors join in their lessons. As we traveled through the countryside of Tanzania, we caught glimpses of life in towns and villages all along the way. Every place was bustling with commerce in this country that used to be a socialist state. Pushcart entrepreneurs found creative ways to attract the attention of tourists, and a banana vendor was happy to make a drive-through sale. On a lonely stretch of highway, we encountered 4 teenagers from a Maasai tribe dressed in black, their faces painted.
They put the bones in the fire, and then after putting that bone in the fire, they crush them down, and that's where they get powder. the white powder. And they say these colors are there to kind of protect them from the evil eyes.
It's a rite of passage for young men when they reach puberty and are only then circumcised with no anesthesia. They spend several months living apart from the rest of their village until their wounds heal and they are welcomed back as young warriors.
And once they become warriors, they just become like soldiers now. They like to shake your hands.
We learned much more about the Maasai during a day-long visit to one of their villages. The women greeted us with singing and dancing. They dressed us in robes and their intricate beaded necklaces and invited us to join in the dancing. Eventually, men from the tribe joined in, jumping to the beat of the music. Adumu, it's called, an athletic form of dancing and flirting in the Maasai tradition. The Maasai live in villages headed by a chief. In this village, the chief had 5 wives and 22 children. Each wife has her own hut where she lives with her children. The huts are made of African adobe, a mixture of mud and cow manure. A few of us helped with the plasterwork, and some of the women brought in thatch balanced on their heads to repair the roof of a hut. The Maasai make a living herding livestock, cattle and goats that they keep in pens made from thorny acacia branches when the animals are not grazing out in the bush. The cattle are a measure of wealth for the Maasai, traded as a dowry when a man takes a wife. And since the Maasai do not hunt wildlife, the cattle are an important source of food, and not just the milk and meat. The Maasai frequently drain blood from a cow's neck to drink either straight or mixed with milk.
Lucas, you are great.
But drinking the blood from a long-necked gourd is a tricky business, as an adventurous woman in our group found out.
I'm sorry, you can.
Despite the spill, she was a good sport about it. While the Maasai shared their traditions with us, we shared photos from home with them.
And a bear.
The visit to this village was a brief but meaningful cross-cultural encounter, one of the highlights of our tour that was filled with memorable moments. So we leave this amazing country taking with us the spirit of its people, expressed in the Swahili saying we heard so frequently in Tanzania, Hakuna Matata, meaning no worries. A good approach to life no matter where you live on this planet.
Hakuna matata,